Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon, and I have the pleasure at the moment of looking outside of a window, a wet, windy, late November winter day in the northwest of England. But it's also a very special view that I'm looking at, and although you can't see it, wonderful listeners of this podcast, I thought we'd talk a little bit about the magical, rather remarkable place that I'm currently at. And just for a change, as regular listeners to this podcast know, I'm going to involve in this discussion my wonderful husband, Professor Steve Redhead. I know this will come as a surprise to people, but when I travel, he often comes with me. So, Steve, where are we? We are in Morecambe. And for international listeners, could you tell us where we are and tell us something a little bit about this town?
Morecambe is a small seaside town in the northwest of England, about 10 minutes railway ride away from Lancaster. And it's right, the Midland Hotel that we're in is right on the sea. It's helping to regenerate the town of Morecambe, which was a very successful seaside and tourist town in the past, but recently has been in decline.
So how would you compare it to Blackpool, say, socially or culturally? Are they similar or are they different?
There are a lot of similarities between Morecambe and Blackpool. They were both seaside tourist towns in the heyday of working class tourism in Britain. But probably Morecambe is a little bit more upmarket than Blackpool. Blackpool's taken itself pretty much down market over the years, and Blackpool's a bit bigger too.
We actually are sitting in the Midland Hotel. Now, of course, West Australians know Midland as a suburb on a railway line, and my father worked in Midland Workshop, so Midland has a bit of a West Australian heritage as well, but we're sitting in the Midland Hotel. So why is this such a special place, and why did we decide to check in here?
Well, it's a really wonderful site. This is an iconic Art Deco building from 1933, now restored. It really, we're big fans of Art Deco and sitting by the sea, and we've got that in spades. But the Midland Hotel was originally a railway hotel. It was actually built in 1933 as a fantastic Art Deco building. And it was apparently built by the London, Midland and Scottish Railway. It is literally on the sea front, and opposite it is the old Morecambe railway station where tourists used to come. But in fact, for a long time it was an iconic building, was mentioned architecturally and artistically as well as in tourist terms. But in the 1990s it fell into massive decline. It was a dilapidated building, rather like Morecambe. It kind of symbolised the decline of the town in many ways. But as part of the regeneration of cities, and we're interested in research terms, of course, particularly in terms of these third-tier cities and how they get regenerated, if at all.
Or not, yeah.
Or not. They were basically a movement started to restore this iconic Art Deco building. And in 2003, it was decided by Lancaster City Council, Lancaster's very close here, the Northwest Regional Development Agency, which had a great hand in regenerating all sorts of parts of the Northwest, as some of my previous work has shown, particularly in Manchester. And Urban Splash, which was, again, a kind of iconic company which redesigned old warehouse building as kind of New York lofts in many cities, including Manchester, run by Tom Bloxham. They were also involved in the redesign of this wonderful building. And in 2008, it was all completed. It took years, but it was all completed. So we're sitting here in 2012, but for 4 years it's been a magnificently restored, iconic Art Deco hotel.
And it is extraordinary. I don't know what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting something as fabulous as this. And also it has great event management in it as well. We were watching a wedding happening on the bottom story yesterday as well. But there's a restaurant, a fantastic promenade as well. All the surrounds of the hotel are remarkable. I'm absolutely thrilled with it. And of course the Eric Morecambe statue, we're rather big fans. The Eric Morecambe statue is, about 200 metres away. So fantastic. And one of the reasons we came, because obviously we're leaving the United Kingdom in about 10 days, Steve, and one of the reasons we came to Morecambe was because you actually have a personal connection with Morecambe, and more obliquely perhaps with the hotel itself. and these connections are through your grandfathers. So could you explain to listeners why we're here and what your familial connection is?
Yes, I find it really quite on a spiritual place to return to, this part of the Northwest, particularly as I was brought as a kid to Lancaster and Morecambe, because both my parents had an integral relationship to it, and in fact both my grandfathers. My grandfather on the paternal side was actually a goalkeeper for both Morecambe and Lancaster. He's now dead, but many, many years ago he was a goalkeeper in the days when amateurs played for payment, which they called money in the boots. So he would go as a goalkeeper into the dressing room at half-time or at full-time, and in the dressing room, in his boots, in his spare boots, would actually be some money. That's how they paid to get round the rules of professionalism in the amateur days. And he would certainly, I remember as a very small child, him reminiscing about this area. And my grandfather on the maternal side, interestingly enough, was really quite an important designer, and was massively influenced, particularly in the 1920s and 30s, by the Bauhaus. Marcel Breuer came to study, to work with him actually in 1935, 1936 in the Bristol and Bath area. But before that, he was we've seen a lot, we're doing some work on him. John Parkinson Hulley was his name. We're actually doing some historical design work on him and his career, and he was always very interested in Art Deco and modernism too. And it's really quite interesting that he was actually brought up in the Lancaster area. He went to a Quaker school. We love the Quakers.
We love the Quakers.
Quaker school in Lancaster before moving to the south of England to pursue his career. But the Art Deco modernist side was really interesting to him, and it's fascinating to be in this particular iconic Art Deco hotel.
So, Steve, it's going to be quite remarkable as we leave the Northwest and leave England that we continue these research projects we've been working on for some years on third-tier cities and also on Parkinson Hulley and dealing with his work in Art Deco, that we can actually bring forward the work of your grandfathers, but also bring forward the great work of people who committed to small cities and large towns to try and ensure economic, social and political improvement. So let's see if we can continue their legacy a bit.
Yep, I agree.
Onward, sir.